I never really spent time being jealous. Maybe I should have. Well, no, I didn't because I didn't even know the nominations were coming out. I gotta say, it wasn't even on my radar. I hadn't even thought about it. I am humbled by the nomination. I got to work with a cast and writers made up of geniuses. The good news is I can finally realize my lifelong dream and buy my wife a solid gold speedboat. Because I think a lot of people felt like, ultimately, and this isn't the first time I've said this, so I'll bore you again with it, but ultimately it was. I think it felt like homework a bit for people. Because we have this whole other human being we have to think about other than ourselves. We had the luxury before of being totally self-centered. Arrested Development was such an amazing experience in every way. And you know it was very unique in that it was a show that received a lot of critical acclaim, and yet we didn't ever achieve the ratings that we wanted. Well, we were never coming back to Fox, that was clear. When it sort of finally sets in that you're not going to be doing that anymore, it's disappointing. Yeah, you know, within the context of TV families, these are pretty unsavory characters. You don't always have to run. Take good time to watch first, then decide. It doesn't look great if you cancel the reigning best comedy program. You know, you're gonna take a hit from sort of a public relations standpoint. It's very rare that people are exactly who they appear to be. Venice has a lot of that too, but the face of it is quite beautiful, interesting, and textured. Arrested Development opened a lot of doors for me. I've always maintained that I don't think comedy should be reviewed. I think it's unreviewable, because it is so subjective. I want my son to wear a helmet 24 hours a day. If it was socially acceptable, I'd be the first one to have my kid in a full helmet and like a cage across his face mask. This pilot, by far, was the best I ever read, and I hope that insults every other pilot I worked on. The show had run its course on the Fox network. Everybody has some good in them and they can be relied on. When all of your friends are getting pregnant, you start thinking about it. But for Amy and I, show business is our baby. Yeah, I don't think you can live anywhere else. It's such a great city, New York. LA is kind of a necessary evil, but man, I love going back to New York. I don't want to make a show about because it's a personal experience for anybody who is a part of that. My relationship with it has changed over the years, and I wanted the show to reflect that in a real way. I want my son to wear a helmet 24 hours a day. I mean, I gotta say one of the greatest victories on that show was when we got picked up for the back 9 of the first season, and they made it a full order. When I was in my 20s, I wanted to go after dramatic roles, and I didn't have a tremendous amount of success with that. Everything's not black and white. We choose to make bad decisions or not. I wanted to explore that and shine a light on it. Chip is trying to be a better person and lead a better life. His methods are just super flawed. If you have a character that doesn't have anything wrong with him, there's nothing funny about it. You've got to rely on people that you trust and you love. Even if you make a mistake, you can go back and do the right thing. I probably suffered from ADHD, but they weren't so quick to diagnose it back then. For PE, they'd drop you in the woods with a compass and a pack of matches. It gave you confidence that you could rely on yourself. The idea of the straight man is very important. But I'd rather it be somebody else, because it's not as fun. And when I say somebody else, of course I mean Jason Bateman. He's born to play boring characters because he's such a bore. He's one of the most boring human beings. All jokes aside, it's a very difficult job playing the straight man. Jason is potentially the most brilliant straight man that ever was because he's also really funny while doing it, which is even harder. I've always seen myself playing characters who are flawed. We use comedy in our lives to obscure the drama. There's a lot of lying, and these are people who are incredibly flawed, and not in very sort of empathetic ways, either. Some of the things they do are pretty awful, and some of the things they do to each other are pretty awful.